Well, first things first, Igor, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm healthy. I'm alive. I made it through 2020, and I'm making it through 2021.
That's the new goal.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, talking about 2020 then, because obviously yourself and the family very involved in music, several bands, all of you. It's kind of encompasses your entire life. So, what has the last year been like for the Cavalera family?
It's been wild. Definitely, it's been a little crazy. We had a whole year lined up of touring, album stuff ready to go last year that came to a halt out of nowhere. So for the first time in ever, we've gone over a year without playing shows and without traveling and without playing our music for people. So that has been very hard. It's been very stressful in that sense, but we made the most of it. I believe it's the silver lining to the situation that we had the chance to make Go Ahead and Die and got to have the time to start a band from scratch from zero. So 2020 was crazy, but it was very productive, and because of it, I had the chance to work with my father, who's so busy all the
Sure.
time, in so many bands. It gave us the freedom and the time to do it. So 2020 was crazy, but it was very good as well.
Yeah, because I can imagine. Well, you already play in a couple of bands, so one of the questions I had was why kind of start another one? Because what was it about the other bands then that you couldn't express and you can express now, in a sense?
Well, with my most active band as of now, Healing Magic,
Mm-hmm.
we are more in the stoner psychedelic category of music. And while I love making the slower, groovier stuff like that, I really wanted to make an extreme record because I've always been a fan of hardcore and punk and grind and death metal and stuff like that. Not to mention, I did always want to work with my father because we have a lot of similar musical interests and influences and bands that we love in common. So it was a collection of those things. But I would say primarily because I haven't been in a band like this before, and I've always wanted to.
And I could imagine, but maybe this is not the case. But is it also a reflection of kind of the times we're in? Because the extreme music seems more appropriate, I would say these days.
Absolutely. The lyrical content of the album is centered around a lot of social to political to all types of different stuff on the record, but it is about the current times. And to us, to my father and me, we we both felt that fit the music and the extremity of it.
Hmm.
And it reflected the old school music as well of bands that we listened to, like Terrorizer and Napalm Death and Discharge and stuff like that. Those bands were centered around social and political issues back then. So in a way, it all ties together. The current events of 2020, which for us Americans was insane.
Right.
That last year was crazy for so many of us. And I think Go Ahead and Die will symbolize that year. And in the future, hopefully 20 years from now, when this is a memory, that album will just be a reflection of this crazy time. Just like in the 80s, they were writing about the current events then, and in the 90s and the 70s as well. I think this album will stand the test of time and show some of the ideas and frustrations that were going on.
And is that ultimately a result of kind of that punk foundation that you have, that kind of like you mentioned, kind of speaking out against things that well directed anger, I would call it.
Yeah, um, definitely. No, that's a good way to put it. It's well directed anger. I got into punk and crust and hardcore at a really young age. Actually, punk was one of the first things I got into when I was 12 or 13. and a lot of the punk I listened to was bands that would center their ideologies and stuff around social issues, equality, acceptance, tolerance, things like that. So that shaped me a little bit, as a young teenager to be accepting and to be friends with everyone and always be approachable and stuff like that. So it was something I always wanted to write about, but never got the chance to with my other bands. And when we finally did go ahead and die, the music was extreme and aggressive and frustrated. So it felt like my chance to finally let out a lot of those feelings that I had for a long time. But it's definitely thanks to bands like Napalm Death and Doom that I have this mindset of being open minded and being accepting of people. It taught me a lot of lessons.
What did the first couple of sessions, those writing sessions, look like? Were they with your father? Was it just initially you alone, or how did kind of the first sketches of ideas come off the ground?
We did it together. We went. My parents own property out in the Arizona desert, so it's a
Oh,
very quiet, secluded place with no distractions. So we just drove out there. We like bought groceries and just we were ready to hibernate. It was right in the middle of quarantine and everything like that. So we just we got our amps and drum machine and me and him we would sit for hours every day and just come up with riffs, and then once we felt like we had a song we would make a rough demo of it and just keep working on it, and it was just a lot of fun. It was it was something we wanted to do for a while, and finally getting the chance to do it, we were both really excited and a little giddy.
right.
you know But
No, that's
it
good.
was great.
No, that's very good because, well, let me ask you this then. Working with your father, and your father obviously has been around in the music industry, is there something that you've learned about music, or maybe about the way he writes, through working with him?
I did. He showed me a lot of ways he comes up with songs, how he structures them, stuff like that. And then I showed him my formula as well.
Sure.
I think that's what is so cool about the album and why it sounds so different. It has so many different influences and stuff. Is we were both sharing experiences and knowledge with each other. And it was cool because we're a couple generations apart,
Hmm.
but we have the same love for metal and the same love for extreme music. So when it came time to write, if I had an idea, we would use it. If he had an idea, we would use it. And the album that you hear now is the combination of both of us. And so I learned from him, he learned from me, and we
Hmm.
we just we just traded knowledge.
Right. Well, I want to play a devil's advocate just for a short for one question because obviously Zach is a very accomplished and by all accounts amazing drummer. Was there any conversation of Zion being the drummer in the band?
Possibly at one time, but with him already being in Soulfly, we thought that it might have wound up possibly sounding or
Mhm.
being too similar to Soulfly. And he doesn't, personally, I could say, I've worked with him before. He doesn't like blast beat
Okay.
extreme style. He's much more of a rhythm influenced drummer, groove influence, things like that, and that's perfectly fine. He does really good at what he does, but yeah, with this extreme stuff, we wanted someone who would do the 300 beat per minute blast beats and stuff like that, no problems. So
Sure.
Zach was a really really great addition to the band, and I'm really lucky that we got in touch with him because I didn't know him before the band.
Okay.
We made the connection through forming the band, through mutual friends, and he did a great job, definitely.
Sure. And well, it reminds me of one thing. Is lodik still a thing?
No, lodik has actually been, I guess you could call it on hiatus
Hmm.
since 2018. As I mentioned earlier, my brother's in Soulfly, so lodik kind of came to the point where he was just too busy with that. I had a lot of ideas. I wanted to get going on something, so unfortunately we had to stop doing it. But I did immediately pick up with a new band called Healing Magic, which is my current act that I'd say I'm most active with right now. We have a EP out and a full length as well, so we're working on stuff too. So I'm staying really busy.
Yeah, like I said, it's just you're in a numerous band, so you have a lot on your plate, I would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
let's get back to the album then, because well, you mentioned those early sessions with your dad, kind of exchanging ideas and creating those initial ideas. What was the first song that kind of got fleshed out and became an actual song that ended up on the record?
It's one towards the end of the record called "In the Slaughterline." That was actually the very first song that we came up with, and I really like it. You know, it's actually it shows everything that we were going for on one song. It has a lot of punk energy with like a totally chunky metal riff in the middle. So it's a good blend of all the stuff we were going for, and yeah, I actually think some of the riffs on that song we came up with the very first day.
Uh, And then, the way you write is, can I assume then that the lyrics come later, or do you already have certain ideas that you want to discuss on songs?
We had ideas, but we would definitely write the music first.
Okay.
We would make the songs, and then once the song was demoed, completed, then we would sit and talk about ideas like, okay, let's maybe make this one about political corruption. Okay, let's make this one about COVID. So there's a process of that of we demoed the songs, and then we had some ideas, and we kind of sat and just picked which ones would fit best on each song.
Mhm. And what was the initial idea for Slaughterhouse thematically?
It's just kind of about, I guess you could say, like consumerism. It's about constantly needing and wanting
Hmm.
and needing distraction, and I guess you could say like the title in the slaughter line. It's sort of like
Slaughterline. Sorry.
just being a line of consumers. You give me the product and next, give me the product next, give me so it's I guess you could say it's kind of about that, about materialism and stuff like that.
As somebody, because when you become an artist, you kind of have to share your music and you have to go on social media and do all those kind of things. What is your relationship with those type of things, the materialistic and consumer nature of kind of some a part of what you do in a way?
How I look at it is, if I was lucky enough to live in a society where I could make music and write stories and do stuff like that for free, I would. I would do this if I wasn't getting paid. Unfortunately, I live in reality and I
Right.
have bills and I have medical issues and things that I need to survive. So I do have to approach my music in a way that I can make enough money to tour and survive and hit the road and do stuff like that. But it really is a passion of mine, and I would do it with the cheapest gear. I would do it by myself or with a group of people. I would do it regardless of the situation. But like I said, I live in the real world where I have to pay for things and survive just like everybody else. So
Sure.
if I can make money from my music, then I gladly will, because
Mhm.
it's what I love and it's what I do. And until I live in a society that everything is provided, I have to ask for a little bit of money. But personally, I like to be a down to earth person. I live pretty simply. Other than collecting instruments and books, I don't really have a lot of material stuff that I'm attached to. I like the outdoors a lot more than being shut in all the time and stuff. So I like to be kind of natural.
Mhm.
I don't like I don't like being obsessed with new technology and stuff like that. Like, give me a guitar or give me a book or even just a video game, and I'm fine.
Right, right.
you know.
Well, you mentioned books, and I know you are an avid reader. Does a lot of what you read, does that influence what you write as well?
It has before, definitely. I would say less with Go Ahead and Die. Go Ahead and Die
Okay.
takes a lot of influence from the real world and active current things going on right now.
Hmm.
But no, it certainly does make its way into my music one way or another. And I like making stories out of my songs. So even if I'm not taking a direct influence, I approach them all as stories and as a way of showing people my ideas and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
books definitely do influence stuff, but I would say more with Healing Magic. Healing Magic is actually a
Okay.
story-based band where each album has a concept and a story, and everything goes together, type thing.
And if you think about Go Ahead and Die and kind of the themes as we discussed, is that more difficult to write for them because it's about the real world and for instance, if you take Toxic Freedom, it's a very important but also a very serious subject. So does that kind of change your approach in a way, or does that add pressure?
No, of course, of course. Whenever real world scenarios are brought into music, I feel like it's often misunderstood, it's often confused what the artist is intending, and for a lot of people, they won't write about issues like this because of that.
Right.
And, so we do live in a crazy world where, um, people are taking to offense to new things. We're being educated on new things as a society that maybe for a lot of people we'd never thought of or anything. And things are changing and evolving and this and that. So it can be a little scary and a little, a little crazy to write about the state of the world because of how it is. But,
Mhm.
um, my opinion has always been that if what you're writing about is justified, then you don't need to worry about people's reactions. Like Toxic Freedom, for instance, is an anti-police brutality song. It's a anti-police corruption song, which goes on around the world in Europe, in
Sure.
America, in South America, in Asia. It's something that goes on around the world, and we can all agree with, and it's a justifiable cause. So as long as what you're speaking about is just, then I don't think you should worry about your opinion. Take like Toxic Freedom. If someone is mad about the image of Toxic Freedom, maybe you should think about why
Right.
you're mad at the song, not be mad at the song,
Right.
because and someone else asked me once, what would you tell a police officer listening to the song? And I would tell a police officer listening to Toxic Freedom to rethink how they are a police officer and speak out against corruption in the system and speak up for it.
Hmm.
Stop complying with the racist system. And you shouldn't be mad at this song. If you're against a racist system, there's no need to be mad at this song or mad at me or mad at my father.
Yeah,
I mean, my
that,
he wrote
no.
songs called "Refuse, Resist" and "Anti-Cop." I mean, it's like,
No, but it's also what you just mentioned kind of reminds me of that saying. I can't remember who it was by, but that kind of the easiest way for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing, and that's very much yeah, that's a very healthy way of looking at just it's not against police officers, but if they feel a certain way, then maybe they have to look within themselves. I certainly agree.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
with the well, obviously this is a very important one, and you mentioned that you had a couple of themes or things that you wanted to talk about before. And was there one thing that even perhaps before the conception of the band that you wanted to discuss in one of your songs?
Absolutely. Um, my distrust of the government could
Okay.
be one. I genuinely don't believe many politicians care for the greater good of people. I think a lot of Americans' politics is just a cash grab. Um, I would personally be more supportive of a ecologically based society or a resource based society, as opposed to a monetary or politically based society. I wish scientists were running the
Mm.
world and doctors and learned professors rather than corporate scumbags. So yeah, I have actually always wanted to write about stuff like this, and even with bands that I was in prior, like Lodi Kong, and even with Healing Magic, while they might have more of a psychedelic approach, they still have nuances and underlying messages about the world and stuff. But no, like I said, I got into punk and metal and stuff like that very young. So I've always felt like we are kind of underground messengers and underground,
Right.
uh, protesters and anarchists in our own ways and stuff. And I will continue to believe in these ideologies, and I will continue to talk about how the world is run by corporate scumbags, and I will not shut up about it.
Excellent, excellent. Because yeah, I would say I agree with you. I was thinking this today actually. Like the people that end up in politics are never the people that genuinely care about others. I think, or rarely, very rarely.
Very rarely. There's some countries that you can't admire and stuff. Like Iceland completely deposed of their corruption and instituted new leaders that are scientists and are mathematicians and things like that. And now you can see those are some of the happiest countries in the world to live in, that have the shortest work weeks and uh, you, you know better social structures and things like that. And it's sad to say, but I don't think America is the shining example of brilliance that maybe it once was, or possibly it never was. It might have always been a facade. Who knows? But a lot of the corruption is coming to light, and a lot of this stuff is rising to the surface. So I will be there with the millions of others that want this world to change as well.
Mm. Well, final kind of to round off the interview then, because obviously live shows are not in the back of the minds of anybody now, for obvious reasons. But when you write music, I can imagine you also would think about how songs would go over live or how they would work live. Was that a factor at all in this record?
It was interesting as we wrote it. We didn't know if it was going to be a live band or a studio band or
Right.
whatever. But as the songs came together and as we practiced, it became obvious to us that we wanted to do it live, that it sounded good live. Um, in my personal opinion, the old school music, the extreme, fast, gritty style of music needs to be played live. And for me as an artist, I want to play it live, and I think as fans they will enjoy the show just as much. So we do have plans to play some shows.
Okay.
Just hopefully, some borders are still closed.
Right.
To be honest, shows aren't even happening in a lot of countries still. So it's just a matter of time until things can start to return to normal. before we can start doing it. But when that does come around, because it will get better, you know, everything always does get better eventually. We will bring this band around the world for everybody to enjoy.